Ladies and gents, welcome back. This weekend, Canadians will be celebrating the expiration of mandates in Canada. I say expiration because they're not dropping the mandates. They're actually just letting them expire. They don't have the political fortitude to continue as it seemed they were trying to. Trudeau's still holding on to the fact that if not enough people take the new bivariant vaccine, he could reinstate measures on our nation. But as of yet, we are looking forward to the expiration of these mandates. Now, we can also thank a trucker at this time because this is all happening due to the political pressure that has been mounting ever since the Freedom Convoy back in February. And a lot of what happened and the egregious draconian measures that the Trudeau government had taken since are coming to light as the inquiry for that is just right around the corner. And I have this opinion piece by McGill from Newsweek. It was published on Newsweek. 6 months after the Freedom Convoy, Trudeau's lies and cowardice are clearer than ever. And this clip from Joe Rogan, which is just amazing. It's always been one to show when talking about Justin Trudeau here in Canada and the public opinion on him around the world.
When you have what's a creepy dictator for a prime minister, and that's what he is.
He is.
The way he behaved during this thing, and the disingenuous way that he communicated, it freaked me out because I never thought that guy was like that.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't think he was like that, but we all are living with the consequences of that now. It's been 6 months since Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau cracked down on one of the largest labor protests in recent history. In February, thousands of Canadian truck drivers joined what became known as the Freedom Convoy, driving to Ottawa and parking their rigs in the capital city in protest of Trudeau's vaccine mandates. And we're going all the way to today before these mandates are being lifted. Now, the provinces have lifted them. It's been the federal government that has been stubborn ever since and not lifting these measures. I was one of them, but rather than meet with truckers, Trudeau demonized us as extremists and then invoked the never-before-used Emergencies Act, meant to be used during times of war or terrorism, granting the government extraordinary powers they do not normally have, and then use the Emergencies Act to freeze the bank accounts of protest organizers and those who donated to the truckers, and had convoy organizer Tamara Lich arrested and then dragged through the system in a process that a lot of people are calling lawfare, where it's actually the process that is the punishment, not what you would be sentenced by a court of law. It's the process entirely, because, well, we're seeing that Tamara Lich is not even going to get to see her day in court until next September. And until then, she has these extraordinary bail conditions where she's not even allowed to communicate with people she was involved with. She's not allowed to go on social media. She's a public figure. She's not allowed to do any of these things. She was brought back to jail after being in a photograph with someone, even Tom Marazzo, it was in a stipulation in her bail conditions, but she was with her counsel, which was also a stipulation, and she was again released on that. Now, Justin Trudeau's famous words here as the protest was rolling into Ottawa.
The small fringe minority of people who are on their way to Ottawa or who are holding unacceptable views that they're expressing do not represent the views of Canadians who have been there for each other, who know that following the science and stepping up to protect each other is the best way to continue to ensure our freedoms, our rights, our values as a country.
Well, we've seen what science they followed. It turned out in a lot of court cases that followed this, that the science wasn't there. It was a political decision, and they were just looking for any science that they could find. They did not find it. They did not find it. And we are still suffering up until tomorrow with these vaccine mandates and mask mandates on airplanes. 6 months later, it's clearer than ever just how unjustifiable Trudeau's actions really were. In a recent report, the CBC Canada federal public broadcaster found that at the time Trudeau invoked the Emergencies Act, an agreement for truckers to leave the city's residential streets had already been reached between the City of Ottawa and Litch and other organizers. The Emergencies Act meant that the agreement wasn't given time to play out before the government took such a draconian move. It was interesting timing because it was on the 14th and it was just before they actually went to start moving the trucks. Had they moved one single truck, it would have made it unjustifiable. I would say that it was still unjustifiable because they didn't need it. And of course, a lot of the reaction was, well, they're blocking borders there, but the border protests had been dismantled before the Emergencies Act actually was even invoked. And the Prime Minister could not have not known this. And that is an absolute fact there. Now, this is an amazing timeline reference. I'll leave a link in the description down below for anyone who wants to view this. But this timeline reference is from the Freedom Convoy, and it gives a complete timeline of all the events, everything. This was a very well-organized, well-oiled machine, this protest. They had notes, they did conferences, all of it was organized and recorded. This was not some willy-nilly bunch of hillbillies getting in their trucks and going to Ottawa. This was a very organized protest, and thank God for it, because we have all this information now. And here's one particular thing. On February 8th, 2022, there was a confidential meeting with City of Ottawa manager, and in this confidential meeting was Steve again, I'm bad with names, everybody. Kanellakos, Ottawa City Manager, Fong Lee, Ottawa Police Liaison, Constable Isabel, that's the Ottawa Police Liaison as well, Constable Andrew, OPP Liaison, Tom Marazzo from the Freedom Convoy, Keith Wilson, Legal Counsel, Eva Chipiuk, Legal Counsel. Now, what took place in this meeting regarding cooperation and coordination of efforts to reduce impacts on Ottawa area residents. Frank discussion acknowledging main issue is with the federal government, but Ottawa residents and authorities are experiencing a majority of the impacts. City manager understands that Ottawa is the nation's capital and that protesting federal government in nation's capital is understandable. So there's concessions on both sides here, right? This is actual negotiation that was taking place with the OPP, the Ottawa Police, and with the City of Ottawa. Understanding was reached to move as many trucks as possible away from the area residents and onto Wellington Street. City and police also requested intersection of Rideau and Sussex cleaned up. Police liaison Fong Lee advised that they will remove the concrete barricades preventing the trucks to move onto Wellington Street if trucks from Rideau and Sussex intersection agree to move to Wellington. Perfectly normal negotiation during a protest. Following meeting with City, Tom Marazzo and Eva Chipiuk advised the trucks at Rideau and Sussex that police agreed to move the concrete barricades so that they can move to Wellington. Trucks have a hard time buying in because they have lost trust with the Ottawa Police. And this was because they were coming and they were confiscating fuel. They were doing all kinds of shenanigans. But this is what happens when a lot of people get together. They were raided. Concrete blocks were put in when they said they would not. Now, again, one of the things, the narratives is that the trucks were blockading. They were very adamant at making sure that there was an emergency lane open at all times. It was the police that did all the blockading during this time. A request was made to have police liaisons confirm agreement as trucks have lost trust with the police. However, ultimately, police liaison Lee advised that he did not have the authority to move the concrete blocks at that time and would get back to the group once he had the authority to do so. And again, you can look at this. It's a really long list of all the events and all the things that took place during the Freedom Convoy for the few weeks that they were there in Ottawa. I also have a letter here. This is February 12th, 2022, addressed at Jim Watson. Response, Freedom Convoy 22, reducing impact to City Ottawa residents. Dear Jim Watson, thank you for your letter. The truckers here in Ottawa have always been about peaceful protest. Many of the citizens and businesses in Ottawa have been cheering us on, but we are also disturbing others. So there's an acknowledgement here. That was never our intent. The Freedom Convoy board agreed with your request to reduce pressure on the residents and businesses in the city of Ottawa. We have made a plan to consolidate our protest efforts around Parliament Hill. We will be working hard over the next 24 hours to get buy-in from the truckers. So try to convince everybody. We hope to start repositioning our trucks on Monday. As stated in your letter, we look forward to working with authorities to ensure the safe movement of our trucks in their new locations. Please reach out should you have any questions. We look forward to meeting with you and discuss the issues raised by the truckers. Kind regards, the Freedom Convoy 2022 President Tamara Lich. So this is the conspiring to commit mischief here. This is it seems a lot like negotiating in terms of trying to alleviate the situations that were being purported to have taken place. Now, getting back to the article, this is a black mark on the Canadian history. Dean French, who organized the agreement, told the CBC of Trudeau's actions. History will show that this was a total overreaction. Indeed, some truckers had already begun to leave Ottawa before the Emergencies Act was invoked, as had truckers blocking several border crossings, as I mentioned. The border crossings that had protests on them, I'm not going to say that they were blockades because, in my opinion, they were not intended to be blockades. It was the police surrounding them that caused the blockage of traffic in those places. But they had been dismantled and everyone had gone home by the time of February 14th, Valentine's Day, the infamous Canadian Valentine's Day, when the Emergencies Act was invoked. At the time, Trudeau Minister of Public Safety Marco Mendicino claimed repeatedly that the RCMP, Canada's federal police force, and Ottawa's police chiefs asked for the Emergencies Act to be invoked. And yet it appears to be false. According to both the Commissioner of the RCMP and the Ottawa Police, neither asked for the act to be invoked. Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino office now claiming that he was misunderstood when he said that the police advised the Liberal government to use the Emergencies Act. Here's a clip of him saying exactly about that. I'll save you the listening to his voice, but if you can always click the link in the description down below, get to the article, click on the link, you can see the video for yourself. No, there was never any question of requesting the Emergencies Act, RCMP Commissioner Brenda Lucki said on May 11th. I did not make that request. I'm not aware of anybody else in Ottawa Police Service who did, agreed former Ottawa Police Chief Peter Solly. They didn't just lie about the police, though. From the beginning, Trudeau cast the striking truckers as Nazis and extremists. Freedom of expression, assembly, and association are concerns of democracy, but Nazi symbolism, racist imagery are not, Trudeau said at the time, in one of just many of such iterations on the theme. And Canadian media and other politicians dutifully repeated those talking points. We know that this was all a bunch of crap, to say lightly. The majority of donors were Canadians. There was all types of ethnicities, religions, walks of life involved in this protest. This was not a particular demographic of any kind. The only demographic we had was Canadians and, well, it wasn't even just truckers, because people from all walks of life and all careers ended up coming to it. Now, before I end this video, I wanted to get to one point This is something I covered back at the time. Facing financial peril, impending Senate rebuke, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau revokes Emergency War Measures Act. And this was published at the time. But here's a really damning part of this article. After his prepared remarks about his reversal in position, this is after he revoked the Emergencies Act several days later, Trudeau was softly questioned about the internal documents discovered by the Canadian Senate that point towards Trudeau's cabinet discussing the political benefits they would gain by invoking the Emergencies Act. The Prime Minister dodged the question twice, instead saying the parliamentary investigation will review the Emergencies Act was needed. But it's not needed. Not needed on his behalf. It's needed on behalf of the stipulation of the Emergencies Act. It is required, if the Emergencies Act is declared, that there be an inquiry into it. Keep an eye on this story of the Senate discovery. From all indications, even the Liberal allies of Trudeau in the Senate were unable to support the Emergencies Act after they viewed the non-public document. There's something very damaging in those documents, likely internal emails between Trudeau and various ministers. Now, it's unclear if this will ever come out and see the light of day. This is under cabinet confidentiality. We're seeing this so often. Everything's top secret of what they talked about in cabinet leading up to this and leading up to other things. This Trudeau government has been the most secret government we've ever seen in Canadian history. And while we can see why, it seems like they're up to some fishy things. Leave a comment in the comment section down below. I'm going too long in this video. Let me know what you think of this whole situation. Let me know what you think of the mandates being expired and not being lifted. And, well, we'll see you guys in the next one. Keep on trucking.